here's my plan for our discussion today, but I want to also let you know, because I'm counting on you all being well informed, my hope is through this discussion, I've sort of unofficially deputized all of you to help spread the word to your friends and neighbors across the Sun City and across the county. So I want to have some dialogue, some Q&A. So feel free to give you a little bit of background on me. I've been doing communications, specializing in the utility field for about 25 years. I've worked with about 40 water and wastewater utilities. I've been working with Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer for about 2.5. 2 of those years I was a consultant, and in February they got their claws into me and I became a full-time employee with them. Now, I have a good scope of the strategy, where Beaufort Jasper is going, where they've been and why, and I can also talk about trends in our industry. What I cannot do is I am not a numbers guy. If you wanted me to dig into percentages and 1/1000th, 1/1 billionth measurements, I am probably not your guy, so please bear with me if you do start to really dive into very specific details. I might try to drag an engineer out here with me next time. But just so you know what I'm equipped to talk about, and my thoughts are to talk first about water treatment, try to give you an overview of our water system, an overview of our wastewater system, talk about some of our ongoing challenges. One of those challenges is meeting morning daily demand. Another one is discolored water. Just out of a show of hands, if I can ask everybody, raise your hand if you have experienced discolored water at your faucet. All right. Now, if you want me to really do a deep dive on discolored water, raise your hands again. Okay. So I've got some bonus material at the end of my presentation, and we'll dig into that a little bit. So I'll give you the overview. I'm going to talk to you about some of our plans to address some of the challenges and how you can help, and then we'll do the Q&A and even get into our bonus materials. So I like to start out with just kind of level setting about water treatment. And I think this is something we really take for granted. Water treatment, one of the greatest impacts on the human lifespan in all of the world. I do give honorable mention to antibiotics, but to give you some perspective, in the United States, anybody from New Jersey? All right, thought there might be 1 or 2 of you. Trenton, New Jersey started disinfecting water. They were using chlorine. Almost overnight, the typhoid fever started to drop just right through the floor. We went from 100 out of 100,000 every year to 0.1 out of 100,000 cases per year. Overnight, we started disinfecting, all communities across the country started disinfecting within a year or 2 because they realized these amazing results. And I want to point out, water treatment, this water disinfection, is really the distinguishing factor between developed countries and undeveloped countries. Our mission, to provide quality water, wastewater services to current and future customers in the Lowcountry. This is a snapshot of our utility. So we covered the 2 counties. So it's 750 square miles. 48,000 sewer customers, 68,000 water customers. That's 68,000. I have to keep changing this. I'll get into this a little more, but we're seeing about 3,000 new connections. That's new homes coming online every year. Put that in context, 3,000. That's a small utility in and of itself, getting stacked on top of our existing customers every year. So I have to keep changing that number. We also provide water to 7 wholesale customers. It's like the town of Hilton Head. Our water system, our primary source of water is the Savannah River, and we have water that comes from the Savannah River to our 2 water treatment plants through an 18-mile long canal. We currently treat 39 million gallons of water a day with both of our water treatment plants, and we have 1,500 miles of water main that we pump water out through. This is our watershed. And a watershed, for anybody who doesn't know, basically this is this dark area is a basin, and water starts up at Lake Jocassee, comes all the way down, and our 18-mile canal is here. I like to remind people we all live upstream from someone and we all live downstream from someone. And that's part of why it's so important to take care of our environment and treat the waste correctly before we discharge it back to the environment. On the wastewater side, we treat an average of 10.5 million gallons of wastewater a day. We have 8 wastewater treatment plants, and like I said before, we service about 48,000 customers. Now, an interesting thing, for those of you who have lived in other places where they have hills, elevated areas, where we don't have it here, we're aptly called the Lowcountry. I was talking to a reporter when we were recently dealing with flooding at some of our pump stations right after the tropical storm Debbie. He said, well, how many of these pump stations do you have, and can I get a list? And I'm like, well, there are over 500 of them. In contrast, city of Cincinnati, which has twice as many customers as ours, they have about 12 pump stations. They can pump water or wastewater up a hill and let gravity do all the work. We don't have that luxury. So we have these pumps in our system all over the place, and that can complicate things. So what do we do with the wastewater? Really, there are 3 things that we pretty much do with the water, do with the wastewater. We have an almost 1,000-acre swamp that we have as a wildlife refuge, and we pump a lot of water to that. We have some golf course irrigation, and then some of the water goes into the Beaufort River after it's been treated. And I think it's interesting to know that when we treat the wastewater before we take it back to the environment, it is near drinking water standards. Now, granted, there's an ick factor. I don't want to be drinking it. I wouldn't recommend you do it either. But it is near drinking water standards. It's not chlorinated, but as we put it back into the river downstream from where we release our treated water is cleaner than where it is just upstream. So I think that's interesting. I admit I'm kind of a water nerd, though. So we do all this, and the charge is about a penny a gallon on the water side, about a penny a gallon on the wastewater side. So I'm going to probably refer back to our need for investment, how much money we're spending on infrastructure. These are 4 of our biggest projects, but our engineering staff has identified the need for $590 million of investment in our water and wastewater system. And I wanted that to sink in a little bit. $590 million spread across 68,000 customers. It's a burden. And if we get into what's happening with rates, remember, $590 million spread across not too many people to pay for it. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to reference these 4 projects a little more. Our Cherry Point wastewater system, our board just passed the largest cost resolution they've ever passed at $108 million for one project, and that's the expansion of our Cherry Point wastewater facility from being able to treat 7.5 million gallons a day to 11.25 million gallons a day. Our Perrysburg water treatment plant, we're expanding that. This is on the clean water side from 15 to 30 million gallons a day. Our May River watershed protection plant project is one where we are taking septic systems that are failing and their product is getting into the May River and making it. I appreciate some of you smiling. I'm trying to be delicate, but those failing septic systems are we're finding results of that in the May River, where a lot of people fish oysters are harvested, and it's important to keep that clean as you can imagine. And finally, the Bluffton storage tank right at Buckwater Parkway, Bluffton Parkway. That's $1.5 million gallon water tower. So some of our challenges: service demand. As I said before, we're getting about 3,000 new connections a year. That causes us a challenge being able to just produce enough water. And the real challenge is everybody wants to use the water between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. We currently can meet the demand if you look at the 24-hour period, but when everybody turns on their shower at the same time and turns on their irrigation systems at the same time every morning, it really strains us. I like to make the joke that we spend between midnight and 3 in the morning filling up all of our water towers, and then at 6 o'clock, when everybody starts waking up and turning on their showers and getting their morning routine and doing their irrigation, we all form prayer circles around the water towers as the water tower level just slowly drops. There are cost increases. Some of our construction costs, I know we all have felt cost increase at the grocery store. I know we see it at the gas pump, which curiously is getting a little better just in time for election time. But the construction costs for some of our materials have gone up 250% over the past couple of years. So things like concrete, steel, those kinds of things, the costs for us have skyrocketed. And with all the factories getting built down around Savannah or in Charleston, the skilled workers are in demand. They get to pick where they're going to work, and they get to set their own rates. We have to beg plumbers, electricians, heavy equipment operators. We have to beg them for their attention, and sometimes that begging comes in the form of bigger paychecks for them. There are some construction limitations just getting the attention from those folks. And then there are the regulatory changes. If anybody's interested, I can talk a little bit about that later, but a hot topic in the water industry right now is what are called by many people forever chemicals. They are, I can get into that if you want. Ask me later. It's not necessarily part of the presentation, but the US EPA has had new regulations for water treatment companies to bring the amount of these forever chemicals down. We intend to do that, but our initial estimates are it's going to be about $130 million investment to meet these new regulatory standards, and that is part of that $590 million need that I mentioned earlier. Talked a little bit about the number of people moving here. I think these two charts are interesting. In Jasper County alone, it's the fastest growing county in South Carolina. And incidentally, South Carolina, one of the fastest growing states in the whole country. So we're growing fast, and we're trying to keep up. One of the challenges we face is it takes about 5 years to build a water treatment plant or expand a water treatment plant. In contrast, I had a group of home builders come through for a tour at our water treatment plant several weeks ago. And I said, I'm just curious, if things work perfectly, and admittedly they don't, but how quickly can you go from shoveling the ground for the first time for a house to turning the keys over to somebody? And he said, their goal, 75 days. So if they can build, and granted, they probably don't build them in 75 days. Let's call it 90 days.
That's wild.
We can't build water towers or water treatment plants or wastewater treatment plants that fast. So we are struggling to keep up. And the secret's out, folks. Everybody wants to come to Sun City. So what are we doing to meet challenges? We are expediting investment. We're doing what it takes to build as fast as we can. We are trying to seek some creative solutions. I mentioned the Great Swamp where a lot of our effluent goes. We're trying to help water percolate through the swamp faster and doing some creative things like that. Recruiting new staff, and this is another challenge. I am guessing I know the answer to this. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands here, but a lot of folks who are moving here are already retired, right? They come here, so we have these 3,000 new customers every year. None of them want to work.
Interesting.
So we got to find the workers. So we're going out further and further trying to get people to move here to be workers, and that's an extra challenge. Our realities are traditional infrastructure planning timelines being outpaced by housing construction. Utility construction's much more expensive than it was just a few years ago. We've got the unfunded regulatory mandates. Fees for capacity, that is a fee paid by the developers, must go up, and it is going up. But also rates must go up. I mentioned that $590 million in need. We've only got 68,000. Next year it'll be 70, but 70,000 customers to spread that among. So how you can help. Part of it is just understanding our situation. And we're trying to collaborate with other municipalities. We're trying to communicate to them what their zoning decisions, what their density decisions mean for us, and they have very significant impacts. And help educate residents about system challenges. So as you share with folks the challenges we face and some of the information I shared so far with you. Now, one of the things we're trying to do to manage the surge in demand that happens every morning is asking people to follow our irrigation management plan. So if you control your irrigation system, we're asking you to water just 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for odd number houses, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday for even numbered houses. Nobody irrigate on Mondays. And please, nobody irrigate between 3 a.m. and 9 a.m. when the system demands the highest. So start it up, you can irrigate all you want, start at 9 o'clock, irrigate at midnight, but let your irrigation have Mondays off and those early morning hours. We do have these irrigation management stickers that I'll encourage. And Haley, my friend, Haley, I'm sorry I forgot to introduce you. Haley's one of my coworkers, standing right there by the bar, and she does have stickers. We ask that you take those stickers, mark that you're an odd number, an even numbered address, put it on your irrigation timer in case you're not the person that sets that timer. They know it should be on those days. I think I have a question possibly about irrigation.
While we're on the subject, I think what you need to do about the irrigation is people here don't realize you don't have to water this ground 3 days a week. That may tell you what days to water off against. I haven't even turned my irrigation on this year. It was both weeks.
This is an interesting comment, just so everybody can hear. He said, we probably need to communicate more clearly that you don't have to irrigate every day. And that's so true. You know, I was just talking to a customer from Sun City who was exasperated about water rates not long ago. And we have a system that I'll encourage all of you to use called Eye on Water, where you can, on your cell phone, see when your water is getting used, and it will alert you if you have a leak. If it sees that you're using 2 gallons a minute at 3 o'clock in the morning steadily, it'll send you a text message, hey, you might have a leak somewhere. But this person that was exasperated about the water rate, we pulled up where her usage was. She had no idea what was going on with her irrigation system. The day that we got all the rain from Tropical Storm Debbie, she used 700 gallons of water that morning. So one of the biggest things we can all do is know when you're using it and use it wisely. Most of the grass down here does not need to be irrigated every day. About an inch of water per week is all it needs, and that is a total of all the need. If it rains at all, it needs less. So keep that in mind. And Clemson University, they actually have a horticultural department, and if you overwater, you're actually making your grass more dependent on the irrigation. The roots are more shallow. The grass doesn't grow as healthy. So every other day, total of an inch a week. So thank you for that comment, sir. So these are the things we're doing. We're expediting infrastructure investment and construction. We're doing what we can to educate leaders and groups like you. We hope you will work with us to manage demand, especially during those dry weather months, and encourage understanding and participation in our irrigation management plan. So I've got my thank you with my contact information, but I think there was more than one or two people wanted to talk about discoloration. You guys ready to do a deep dive? All right. So I just put these other slides together. These are kind of my extra slides in case I need them. Turns out I need them. So I'm going to talk about two discolored water occurrences. One is something that I will call acute issues that happen sporadically around our system, and we have a plan to work on those. I'm also going to talk about the discoloration we had for about a week and a half after Tropical Storm Debbie. They are two different things, caused by two different things, and had different issues around them. So I'm going to address both. The acute issue is more of a long-term thing. The Tropical Storm Debbie, I don't want to call it aftermath, but I already did. That is something that the Lowcountry utilities, water utilities, has just dealt with for decades after hurricanes and big storms. So I'm going to get into both of those just a little bit. Typically, the discoloration we see in our system is caused by organic and inorganic materials dissolved in the water. We generally can tell what it is just by the color. So brown and black, it's manganese. That's what we usually see here, the brown, black. Sometimes it's the color of dark coffee. Sometimes it's kind of weak tea. But that's generally the issue here. Other areas, especially in the southeast, that brownish red, that's an iron issue. We don't have much iron issue in our water system. White and beige, that's usually calcium or phosphate. And then white that disappears in a glass, it kind of looks milky sometimes. That's usually just air that's trapped in the line. But those are some of the most common things we see and the typical cause. So in our system, if you think about our system as a spider web of big water pipes in the ground that then connect to your house, these water pipes, sometimes the water's moving very quickly through them. Sometimes it's sitting still for maybe hours at a time. There are minute amounts of manganese. And by the way, manganese is a mineral. It is found in some multivitamins. There's not a health effect considered with manganese, but what happens if that manganese in minute amounts in our water system, if the water gets to sit still, a little bits of it settle out of the water, all right? And over time, over years, in some cases, there may be a layer of manganese sitting in the bottom of some of these water pipes. Then, if a rush of water comes through, either by demand, maybe a fire happens and they open a fire hydrant, we even are starting to suspect heavy equipment driving over the pipes, shaking the pipes a little bit, can stir this very fine material that's in the bottom of the pipes. And we know also the demand fluctuation, because we have two water treatment plants. You guys sit kind of in the middle in an area where water mixes from the two. If there's a big pull on this side of our system, water might start flowing through the pipes this way. Then there's a big pull over here, water starts flowing through the pipes this way. As you can imagine, as it's going back and forth, it can stir up that manganese, causing a flare-up. So that's one of the issues we face, and it's really a challenge for us to track these down, because we might get a call and you experience manganese at your house, your neighbor didn't see it, because it has to do with when that got disturbed and when you turned your faucet on. So it's a challenge, and a lot of times when we dispatch somebody out to go investigate, by the time they get there, it's gone. So we're struggling with that. We have some ideas, and some things are starting to show promise. What are we doing to minimize the appearance? We have a 4-point plan that we're working on. The first thing we did was we further reduced the amount of manganese that we're letting get in the system from the water treatment plant in the first place. So we reduced that so that, as you can imagine, if there's less manganese in the water, when it sits still, less can precipitate out of the water and build up. So we did that. But we've got this legacy manganese all through the system in different pockets, and we never know when exactly it's going to get disturbed. So we are trying to stabilize the water pressure in the system so there's less of that sloshing around that I mentioned, and we're doing that by doubling the size of our Perrysburg water treatment plant from 15 million gallons produced a day to 30 million gallons produced a day. That's part of the solution. Another part of the solution is having more storage out in the system. That's the big water tower that I mentioned on Buckwater Parkway that is being constructed. Water towers, one of the great things they do for us, yes, they have storage, but they keep pressure steady, as you can imagine. Until they drop empty, the pressure, that's kind of a reservoir in the sky that helps keep pressure all around the area more stable. And then we are expanding our strategic unidirectional flushing. Yes, sir.
Number 2 up there, shouldn't that be the Lupton Parkway?
It's Buckwater and Bluffton Parkway. It's at that intersection. So.
You say Beaufort.
Oh, yeah. That's my fault. Good help's hard to find, even when it's yourself. Yes, yeah, you're right. Thank you. And now I'm embarrassed. My phone's going to start going off and saying my blood pressure's too high. Yes, it should, and I apologize. It is Buckwater and Beaufort Parkway. Bluffton Parkway. Goodness gracious.
Only Sun City people would catch.
Yes, well, and I appreciate that. And it's the first time I use this slide, so yes, I'll do that. So yes. Where was I? Unidirectional flushing. So a lot of times what we've done traditionally is if somebody calls and they've had discolored water at their faucet for more than 10 minutes, it's not clearing up, we'll send somebody out to open the nearest fire hydrant to get a flush of water through there. This unidirectional flushing is a little different. It's more intense. We may open 4 or 5 hydrants on a road to try to get that water main water really flushing through there, and the goal is to scour out that legacy manganese I mentioned. And we have started doing that. We have not been doing it in the summer because, as you recall, we're having challenges meeting demand. So if I come out and I start dumping 1,000 gallons of water on the curb all at the time, that just makes that problem worse. But thankfully, as the cool weather's happening, we're ramping up this unidirectional flushing more. So if you see 4 hydrants running full blast, you'll know that's what we're doing. And we're targeting, frankly, we're targeting areas to do that with areas where we're getting the most complaints. So if you see at your house water that is discolored and you've turned on your tap and it hasn't gotten better for about 10 minutes, call us. Let us log the call, because that's how we're trying to figure out where is this legacy manganese the biggest problem. So, yes, ma'am.
Why is it that there is manganese here, and I have lived in 5 other states, and I have never seen it? And I've never had brown water. Is it because the way the pipes are in a low country?
Her question is why she's lived in 5 areas with 5 different water systems. She's never experienced this manganese manganese issue. It's a few things, and it varies from area to area and utility to utility. By and large, I'm just speaking in sweeping generalizations, this is a bigger issue in the southeast United States because of our source water. So if you're pulling water out of wells, if the utility's pulling water primarily out of the wells, manganese isn't a problem, by and large. What becomes a problem typically is water hardness and lime, because the water's going through rocks underground, it picks up limestone. That causes other issues with water hardness. Here, the issue we have is it's our raw water or the water out of the Savannah River coming. And I got a picture that's going to hopefully not disturb you too much in a minute about that. Yes, sir.
Question, does activated carbon take the manganese out?
Are you a utility guy?
Yeah,
All right. His question was, does activated carbon remove manganese? The answer is yes. And for those of you who are not water utility guys, activated carbon is a fancy word for basically charcoal. If you have a typical water filter in your house, like a Brita filter with a little cartridge that goes in, if we're all familiar with that, that's got activated carbon in it. And it generally, yes. Her question was, is it also in the refrigerator cartridges? By and large, yes. Different technologies are used for different filters, but activated carbon is a way to clean it up and can be effective. Yes, ma'am.
I was making some phone calls about getting a new water filtration system. And one of the people I spoke with said that the problem that we have in our area was something called polymers. Could you explain what that would mean?
Yeah, sort of. Her question is, she was talking to a water filter company, and they said there are issues with polymers. I'll try to address that a little bit. I'm going to be a little ornery here, though. I hate those water filter people because they scare the daylights out of folks. I even invited one to my house. My wife gives me a hard time, but I had one come to the house, and I did the whole spiel, and he put the drops of water. And then I spent 20 minutes trying to talk him into quitting his job. I said, "You're a good salesman. This is ridiculous." And trying to tell me the water's full of rocks. And literally, he kept saying, "It's so hard. It's full of rocks." They try to scare people. Now, let me give you some perspective. I don't drink bottled water. Part of that's out of principle. It would be like asking a Coke guy to drink Pepsi. I don't. I don't usually use a water filter, though my wife says it tastes better through the Brita filter. I drink our water with confidence every day, even if it's slightly discolored. Now, if it looks like iced tea, I dump it. I don't drink it, I'll admit. But, pardon me, ma'am?
You drink this. This is
Come on up here. Come on up here. Thank you.
And don't tell me that's safe to drink.
So this young lady asked if I would drink this. Now, can I ask you a couple questions about this?
Sure.
Was this a clean container at the beginning?
Yes.
And do you promise you didn't put anything else in here? Okay. Now, I'm not asking any of you to do that. That's one of the challenges we're facing. It's hard for us to track this down. We know what's causing it, and when I say safety isn't an issue, in the water industry, when we talk about safety, what we're thinking about is contaminants like typhoid, microorganisms that are going to make you sick or much worse. Generally, in the water industry, discoloration is considered an aesthetic issue. Now, that doesn't make it fine. I'm not making excuses, but the EPA is worried about things that are going to make you sick. This is looked at, well, was looked at, as an aesthetic issue that we know is gross, does not meet our standards. We're embarrassed by it. I'm embarrassed by it, and it stains laundry. We're looking for ways to fix this. We think the unidirectional flushing will work. There are other technologies that we're exploring, but if unidirectional flushing works, that will be much more cost effective than these other technologies. For example, one of the technologies is we dig a big hole in the ground, we stuff the pipe full of ice, and then push it through to try to scour that. But as you can imagine, that's a lot more labor intensive than opening a bunch of hydrants and trying to flush the water out. So that is one of the technologies we're considering, especially if the unidirectional flushing doesn't work. So far, in the neighborhoods, where we've done the unidirectional flushing and gone through the neighborhood systematically, the number of complaints that happen in that neighborhood have dropped by about 80%. So we think it's getting better. We think this is a solution, but we've got these pockets where we're trying to find what's stirring it up on this day, but not that day. Why does it show up at this house, but not across the street? As you can imagine, with this buried infrastructure, it's a challenge, and we're trying to figure it out. We're even trying to say, we're looking into, does the temperature fluctuation of the water cause more precipitation? We don't know all the answers, but there hasn't been a whole lot of, there is some research being done because this is a much bigger issue than Beaufort Jasper. There is research that is being done, but not nearly the level of research that has happened on things like microorganisms that would make you very, very sick. Ma'am, you had a question?
How long are we looking at for you to get all of the process that you need to get through that?
Her question is, how long is it going to take to make the issues go away? I wish I could give you a quick answer. Part of the challenge is us just trying to track and figure out where it's really a problem. It's mostly not a problem north of the Broad River. Now, they have issues from time to time. It's mostly an issue down here. And we recently had a neighborhood. The neighborhood's only been in place for 2 years, and we had a flare up there. We don't know. We're trying to research, and we're using various approaches, but I don't know when it's going to go away completely. And if I stood here and promised you a date, I wouldn't be being 100% honest. So I'm sorry.
I'm just going to ask one question, and I don't know that you have the answer to it. But you know there was one situation in North Carolina at one point in time, and you know that there were a number of contaminants in water. So no fact. How certain are we that those contaminants do not exist here?
So her question is, I think you're probably talking about the Camp Lejeune area, North Carolina, and the contaminants, and how certain are we that those same contaminants aren't here? The way we are certain is we test for them. And we have detected very small levels. And I'm going to talk about PFAS, the forever chemicals, in a moment. That falls into that category. So I will talk about that. Way back in the back, I've got a question. So her question/suggestion was, why not deputize citizen scientists to collect samples and help us with the research? That is something we are doing and we have done. The part of the challenge with that is we know, even in deputizing folks and having them collect the samples, we know what it is. We keep seeing. Another thing we've done is people with the 3-stage cartridge water filters. I have had some folks in Sun City and other areas save me those filters, and we analyze them. We know what it is. It keeps coming back the same thing. It's manganese. And that's why I can speak with some confidence that it's manganese. So we are doing that, but what I don't want to do is make, we have 60, 70 folks here. I don't want to waste your energy collecting samples when I know what it is. I just got to figure out how to get it out of the system. So I hope that sort of answers your question. Yes, sir. The gentleman said when he first moved here, what he heard a lot about was the aquifer having salt in it. And now he said, but we pull water out of the Savannah River. His question is the aquifer and the Savannah River the same thing? No. And we do not pull water from the aquifer. The utility down on Hilton Head, they do have some wells, deep wells, and they pull water out of the aquifer. And I don't know enough about their utility to know what the condition of the salt in their wells is. I know that's been a challenge in the past. Our intakes are far enough up the Savannah River. We have not had effects of salt in our raw water or untreated water. Yes.
The lady with the colored water, she said about overdevelopment, growth. That's what everybody's worried about. Will there be a time when you're going to say to a developer, sorry, you built this house and I can't give you water? That was her second.
That is our job, to not ever have to do that. We're building as fast as we can. Our mission, as I said before, is to serve current and future customers. We are not in the position of saying, developer, you can move forward and this developer can't. Our job is to, we were created to make sure everybody has enough water, and that's what we're trying to do by building as fast as we can. Now, if you're concerned about development and think development and density is the problem, and I wouldn't disagree with you, that is a challenge, but we don't make decisions on density or development. We make decisions on how to deal with the decisions made by others. So, yes, sir.
In that bigger picture, are you saying the water company does not have communication with Jasper County and tell them this hours to be? You got to pull back on building permits as we can't spot.
Staff.
His question was, are we in communication with Jasper County and telling them about the challenges we have? Yes, we are. We talk to the county council. We have planning staff that work with them. They are aware of these kind of challenges. This, essentially, the same presentation has been, I've delivered it at that level as well.
Listening, or, you know, the pockets of multi, I don't know.
You can draw your own conclusions. I don't want to make career-limiting comments up here. Yes, ma'am. You're talking about your irrigation system, right? This person said that she moved from New Mexico, where water usage water is scarce, and they would decommission their irrigation system in Halloween, turn it off, fire it back up on Mother's Day. I wish y'all would do that. I think that would help us. Reality, though, is the worst months for us are June and July, and especially on Mondays. But yeah, that is an option. We don't need to irrigate all year long. We don't need to irrigate every morning. But as I talk, and I've gone out and talked to the irrigation companies, the Brightviews and Greenview, and talked to these folks, and some of them have said, Jeff, we understand and we will set the timer, but my customers, when they wake up in the morning, want to hear their sprinklers running. And so I'm trying to educate their customers through things like this. I'm trying to educate the irrigation companies, and I'm trying to irrigate the community leaders as well. Yes, sir. His question was, with the $590 million of needed infrastructure, how much are developers paying? How much are customers paying? Now, remember at the beginning, I said I'm not a numbers guy. So I'm going to slowly back away, but I'm going to tell you that it is on the agenda for next week's board meeting to double the fees that the developers are paying for connection fees. So I don't know if that'll pass. I'm sorry, folks. But that's a significant increase. If I doubled your water bill, you'd feel it. I think the developers are feeling it. I don't have a lot of pity for the, I'm sorry, somebody else wanted to shout. But I want you to know we are making them have more skin in the game, and I expect that will continue. So, you sir in the blue shirt.
To the fire, right.
Doesn't ask, what is the actual fee right now? Who sets the fees? Or
Our board sets the fee, and for a house now, I'm not a numbers guy. Haley, do you remember the numbers? The capacity fee, no, to join.
is it about this?
No, it's just under 2,000 now, and I'm being recorded on TV, so this is for posterity, and I'm nervous. It's just under 2,000 now, and we're looking at doubling that. And I'll tell you, the developers have screamed bloody murder, but you know. It's just.
Music?
Yes, that's a capacity fee. That is for what we call an equivalent residential unit. So if it's a house, it's probably a 3-bedroom house, that's a one-time. If it's a 5-unit townhouse, that's probably 5 fees. Yes, sir.
Has tiered pricing been considered?
the more you use, the more you pay?
We are starting to talk about that. The question was, is tiered pricing being considered? It is. We are starting to talk about it. One thing we did in July was I'm being a water nerd here, so bear with me, all right? Until July, if you used more than 7,000 gallons, you didn't pay sewer charges on anything you used above 7,000 gallons. The philosophy behind that is, some people believe you shouldn't pay for water that you're spraying on the grass on the sewer side because you're not sending it back to us. And that's fair. That's a fair argument. But those folks that are using 7,000 gallons of water, that's a lot of water. We raised that cap of the fee from 7 to 10. So we are subsidizing big users a little less. So that goes in the direction of big users paying more. They are paying more under that system. We have started to talk about it, a tiered system, because the folks we serve in the Lowcountry, we have a whole lot of people that use about 2,000 gallons a month. Many, many, many. I imagine a lot of you who don't irrigate a lot are about 2,000, especially if you're a single person, you're probably using under 2,000 gallons a month. Then we have folks that are using 12,000 gallons a month. Should they pay more? They are straining our system more. So I would argue perhaps. Everybody, if you have issues that are very specific to your property, I'll stick around. Come talk to me afterward. But for her question was, she said the irrigation company is adjusting her timer and without her knowledge or consent. I think it will help a little bit to put the stickers that we have here on your timer. But if you have individual issues, let's handle those afterwards and try to handle the bigger picture. Gentleman in the plaid.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Haley had something. Do you mind holding just a second? Haley, did you have something?
Had her kiss up, the slide will fly.
Okay. Sir, do you mind if ladies go first? All right. Lady in the pink. I hear you. I don't think there was a question in there, but you were saying it is a problem. I want to be clear to everybody. I hope I haven't sounded or nobody heard me say this is okay. I did not say that. This is not okay. We are not happy about it. We are, and I am personally embarrassed by it. We are seeking solutions. It's not a quick and easy answer. I'm sorry. But I'm telling you, we're working on it. We're trying to stabilize the flow in the system. We're trying to scour out the legacy manganese. So please don't think I'm up here to say, don't worry about it. I am. All right, guys, I appreciate your enthusiasm and your clapping, but when you're clapping, I can't hear what she's saying.
Reimbursement wrong is that way to spend to get this fish in this, work with the pictures and how to see it.
Ma'am, I understand. I've seen the pictures. I would like it to be resolved. I wish I could snap my fingers and make it go away. We are working on that. I will tell you, with laundry, we've had very good success with a product called Red Out, which and
We're going to say it's going to cover events to your laundry program.
okay. I'm just telling folks that is an option. Yes.
Just to let this gentleman speak. Are you seeing this same problem in other areas outside of Sun City?
The question is, do we see this problem in areas outside of Sun City? The answer is we do. And it is primarily south of the Broad River. But Sun City is what I would call a hot spot for the complaints. Yes, sir. So his question is related to whole house 3-stage water filters. And I appreciate you being sensitive that I can't endorse a product. But I will tell you that those 3-stage systems do remove manganese. The black that you're seeing on that first stage cartridge is manganese. That's the issue. Yes, they work. And the next question, my friend in the pink is going to say, "Are you going to buy me the filter?" Right? I'm not. I'm sorry. If if that is an issue, those 3-stage systems, and they do, and their effectiveness and how much they remove, and I can't get into that, but they do, and typically what you see is the first stage catches big particulates. The next stages usually are some mix of a ceramic material, polymers sometimes, and sometimes they are carbon filter. The charcoal, which I mentioned before. Yes, sir.
We're going to take one more question because within the next half hour, they're going to come in and clean this out to set up for the next meeting. This will be the final question.
I'll take this question, and then I'll stick around for those folks who want to talk. So long as you don't bring any pitchforks or torches, I'll stick around in the hallway until you run out of questions.
It's red stuff and the thing does that they
Okay, his question is, this is a good question, and you know, it's one of the most common questions I get, but it didn't come up so far. The question was the pink stuff that builds up around the faucet and things. That is not, this comes as a surprise to a lot of folks. It is not from our water. It is a bacteria that is in the air all around us, and it needs moisture to grow. So, as we build houses that are sealed up tighter and things dry out less, that water sits in areas around the faucets, and that bacteria gets a chance to have a colony start to grow. Now, what's really great at killing that is a little bit of any cleaning product that has a little bit of bleach in it, which is chlorine, that wipes it right out, or just keep your countertop drier. So, with that,
It takes it away.
she mentioned Dawn dishwashing. I haven't tried Dawn, but I'm going to stick around. Joe said that was the last question. I am here for as long as you like. Oh, okay. Do you mind if I?
Yeah.
Okay. You're right, I did, and I'm sorry, I didn't realize her. She asked me to elaborate a little bit on the forever chemicals and the PFOS, PFOA. To give you some idea, PFOS and PFOA is a compound that breaks down very, very slowly, decades to break down. The reason they've had a lot of trouble in North Carolina is they have a lot of Army bases up there. This stuff is used in so many products, it would blow your mind and creep you out a little bit. It's the Teflon on the pans. It's the wax paper in your fast food. That's not wax anymore. It's PFOS and PFOA. It's on a lot of food wrappers. If you have stain-resistant clothes or Gore-Tex fabrics, that's sprayed with these compounds. Now, the compounds, because they don't break down, when you do laundry or your trash goes to the landfill, it's showing up in our lakes, rivers, and streams. And we're starting to see it. It has been linked with health complications. Now, what we see coming out of the Savannah River are very minute amounts, very, very low amounts. We expected the EPA's regulations that came out this year to say, I'm going to oversimplify, but things needed to be less than 10 parts per trillion. We are typically seeing between 3 and 6 parts per trillion in the tests we're running. They surprised us, and they didn't set the limit at 10. They set it at 4. That's why we are going to need to do something to get, because we're not consistently below that 4. We're right at the end. Now, some communities are up at 10, 15, 30. We're much higher than us. We are seeing small. We thought we were going to not have to do the $100 million investment, but when they set it at 4, we will. We are suing the manufacturers of these chemicals because we don't think our ratepayers should have to pay for it. I don't know what the results of that lawsuit are going to be, but we're trying to get them to pay for it. And this is a problem all across the country. Different utilities have different levels. Some don't have a problem at all, but it is an issue. Something we're seeing. We're doing tests not just on our raw water, our treated water. We're also doing it in the sewage that you all are sending back to us. We're seeing higher levels in the sewage that's coming out of your house than what's going into your house. I think, and I'm not saying this to scare you, but based on the research I've read, some of it's going through your body, some of it's sticking around in your body, but a lot of it's probably coming from when you're doing laundry and sending that back to us. But as I said when I showed the Savannah River watershed, we all live upstream from somebody, and we're sending that down the river and into the ocean. So we need to clean it up, and the chemical manufacturers need to clean up their act. So with that, and I thank you for reminding me to talk about that. I'll talk more in the hallway if you like, but thank you all. I really appreciate the opportunity.